Get ready for an unbelievable Hollywood bombshell. Embark on a spicy journey into the realm of A-list drama in today's video. At long last, Brad Pitt has spoken out about Tom Cruise's stunning secret. The backstory of two of Hollywood's most famous faces is more convoluted than it first seems. What happened behind the scenes while these superstars were working together on screen? We should not delay in finding out. Their first encounter. Things are about to get interesting now. When Interview with the Vampire hired Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt in 1994, the two A-list Hollywood actors finally met. It was monumental, like the first-ever alliance of two superheroes. The film was a gothic horror tale centered on vampires, adapted from the book by Anne Rice. Tom portrayed the menacing and charming vampire Lestat, and Brad the hesitant bloodsucker Louis. Both performers got to showcase a new side in this role. They undoubtedly had quite the scene when they first crossed paths on filming. Suddenly, two men who were used to being the center of attention had to share it. First, there was a little friction, according to historical accounts. Tom had a reputation for being very hard-working and meticulous, while Brad was more laid back. In interviews that followed, Brad admitted the reality and said that he had a tough time throughout shooting. The part was stifling, and he despised the character's gloomy subject matter. Tom, in contrast, seems to take great pleasure in his role as antagonist. They brought distinct styles to the role, yet both were excellent in the film. Their alleged off-screen connection was friendly, yet distant. Despite their lack of camaraderie, they were efficient and competent. They were at radically different points in their careers, and it's easy to understand why. With a number of successful films under his belt, Tom was already a well-known superstar. Both his extreme devotion to his work and his command of his public persona contributed to his fame. Although he was already renowned, Brad's star was still rising. He seemed less worried about presenting an ideal picture to the public and was more relaxed as a result. Their first reactions to one another were probably a mixture of cautious admiration and cautious suspicion. Because after all, they were competing for the same kinds of parts and the same amount of fame. Tom and Brad would eventually achieve much more success in their respective fields. Soon enough, they'd be producing their own films, taking on more difficult parts, and establishing themselves as formidable forces in Hollywood. The fact that two of the most famous actors of their day happened to cross paths on the set of Interview with the Vampire was a watershed event in Hollywood history. Who knew that despite all the celebrity that came their way, there were still secrets that these two managed to keep hidden for years? We should examine their experience on Interview with the Vampire first, however, before moving on to it. The year 1994 was a very exciting one in Hollywood. A high-budget vampire film starring Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt brought together two of Hollywood's greatest names. Many were anticipating the highly anticipated film Interview with the Vampire, which was adapted from the best-selling book by Anne Rice. Pretty out there plot. Brad plays the role of Louis, a vampire who opens up to a reporter about his life. He describes how Tom, in his role as the charming but vicious Lestat, transformed him into a vampire. The film has it all: drama, gore, and elaborate costumes set over many countries and ages. Decisions on casting. Making this film wasn't a picnic. Hollywood struggled to find a way to adapt Anne Rice's long-running bestseller into a film. Concerns about the show's gloomy tone and its homoerotic connotations were voiced in the 1990s, but the producers ultimately opted to go through with it. Some people were surprised by the casting decisions. As Lestat Tom, not everyone was on the same page with it, including Anne Rice. Tom was famous for portraying heroic, patriotic roles, not dark-skinned vampires. The decision was openly panned by Anne, who said that Tom was no more Lestat than Edward G. Robinson is Rhett Butler. In contrast, Brad as Louis seemed more like the right choice. Some may mistake his attractiveness for that of a tormented vampire, given his propensity to brood. Not even Brad was certain he wanted to play the part. Afterwards, he said that he had reservations about the film even as it was being shot. It was quite an eventful production. They set aside $60 million, which was a substantial sum for a 1994 film. They used extravagant costumes and settings to shoot in London, New Orleans, and Paris. Filmmaker Neil Jordan was well known for his experimental and artistic works. It was an intriguing combination to pair him with two A-listers on a big-budget film. When these two A-listers worked together, how was it like? Well, rumors have it that things weren't always going swimmingly. As expected from Tom Cruise, he dove headfirst into the character. He put forth a lot of time and effort to perfect Lestat's accent and mannerisms. He was punctual, well-organized, and relentless in his pursuit of scene perfection. Contrarily, Brad Pitt was facing more difficulties. Despite how surprising it may seem, he said in interviews that playing Louis was difficult for him. He felt ensnared in the film's gloomy, melancholy universe due to the continual nighttime shooting. He allegedly attempted to obtain at one time, but he was informed that doing so would cost him $40 million. Oh no. That their methods diverged and led to friction on set is therefore not surprising. When Brad was having trouble, Tom was going all in. This mirrored the contrast between their on-screen characters, Louis as the hesitant follower and Lestat as the dominating figure. The fact is that rumors circulated that Tom and Brad were feuding, but in subsequent interviews, both men rejected the rumors. Despite their differences in approach, Brad has praised Tom's professionalism and dedication. Tom was quite complimentary of Brad's performance. How sincere was everyone being? The crew. Speculation circulated that Tom Cruise had pulled a prank on Brad Pitt. The team supposedly left Brad alone in the confined coffin after Tom persuaded him to do so for a scene. If this is accurate, however, was it really a harmless practical joke? It seems like the rest of the staff and actors had a more mixed bag of an experience. According to Kirsten Dunst, who portrayed the role of Claudia, the kid vampire, Tom and Brad were quite kind to her during filming. Even though he had a tiny part, Antonio Banderas lauded the performer's professionalism. After all, it was director Neil Jordan's job to keep these two A-listers in check. By all accounts, he managed to keep everything operating smoothly, even if there were hiccups along the way. Tom and Brad, he claimed, were really into their parts and gave it their all to make them come to life. The general people and news outlets were having a ball with all this going on behind the scenes. When Tom and Brad were mentioned as potential movie co-stars, it was a huge deal. It was a sensation in magazines and on talk programs. At first, many were concerned about how the two performers would look in their vampire roles. As word of the starting anxiety spread, questions such, "How will they manage the long hair and pale makeup?" began to circulate in the media. Many people had different opinions when the film was released in theaters in November 1994. Critics were divided. Some gushed over the performances and the extravagant staging. To others, it seemed excessively sluggish or bizarre. Tom and Brad, almost universally acknowledged, have exhibited fresh parts of their acting personalities while taking stunning risks in their roles. Even those who had their doubts about Tom's casting as Lestat were won over by his performance, much to everyone's surprise. The notoriously critical Anne Rice even openly reversed her opinion on his casting. To express her regrets to Tom and her admiration for his depiction of Lestat, she purchased advertising in prominent newspapers. Even though Tom's more colorful character garnered more praise, Brad's performance was well received as well. Interview with the Vampire was a financial success. It was a smashing success for 1994, grossing over $200 million throughout the globe. Actors Tom and Brad teamed together, and the combination of their talents with the successful source material was a great mix. Tom and Brad have discussed their time on set of Interview with the Vampire in subsequent interviews. When asked about the F1 incident, Brad chose to discuss it during one of these interviews. Behind the glamour and sparkle. Their possible 30-year animosity started on the set of their 1994 joint project, Interview with the Vampire, behind all the glitter and glamour. An open interview in the now-defunct Premiere magazine in which Brad voiced his displeasure with Tom's incessantly positive attitude planted the seeds of strife. It turns out that Brad's irritation with Tom grew as the shooting progressed. Declaring, "We're polar opposites," he chose to disclose his alarming condition. "I'm more prone to unintentionally bumping into you," whereas he's all grins and handshakes. Brad claimed that sincere conversation was impeded by this underlying tension. Brad may have acknowledged Tom's acting chops, but his comments stoked the fires of Hollywood rumors. There has been no other collaboration between the two stars since their vampire adventure. Now that Brad has launched his F1 endeavor, rumors of their rivalry have returned. Brad may be invading Tom's Days of Thunder turf in this racing flick. Tom is a well-known racing fanatic. Brad ratcheted up the tension by enlisting the help of Joseph Kosinski, who had previously directed Tom's big hit, Top Gun: Maverick. Some have raised the concern that Tom may see this as Brad interfering with his territory in the action sports industry. The noticeable absence of Tom at the 2023 British Grand Prix, who is a frequent presence at the event, raised eyebrows. Notably, Brad was there, amongst the excitement of race day, recording important sequences for Formula One. The triumph of Tom's acquaintance, Lewis Hamilton, magnified the visibility of his absence. Instead, he decided it was important enough to write about on Instagram the next night at the Twisters' European premiere, when he was there to support his protege Glenn Powell. Are these just random occurrences? Or have these A-listers in Hollywood been avoiding one another for 30 years on purpose? Both fans and others in the know are watching the two stars closely for any indication of a possible meeting. It seems their paths are still firmly separated for the time being. Guess what, though? There was a close call. Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt were almost back together in 2013 for a high-profile project called Go Like Hell, which was really a prequel to the very renowned film Ford v. Ferrari. Based on the book Go Like Hell, Ford, Ferrari, and their battle for speed and glory at Le Mans, which details the intense competition between the two teams in the 1960s and was directed by Joseph Kosinski, this version is based on the racing rivalry between Ford and Ferrari. Much excitement and expectation was sparked by the idea of these two Hollywood heavy hitters reuniting on film. Tom was cast as Carroll Shelby, the futuristic vehicle designer, and Brad as the skilled and driven driver Ken Miles. Many saw the reunion as a casting coup since it would add star power and complexity to the movie. A table read, an essential aspect of pre-production that signifies a genuine dedication to the film, was attended by Tom and Brad as the project progressed. With the help of the table read, they were able to delve. According to accounts from that time, the production was infused with an undeniable enthusiasm and vitality thanks to their participation, and both performers were completely absorbed in their performances. Although there were encouraging signs, Go Like Hell ran into serious financial problems that caused the project to stop. The overwhelming financial constraints caused the project to be shelved. After pouring his heart and everything into making this narrative a reality, Kosinski had to bail when the project fell through. Everyone was disappointed when Go Like Hell was shelved, but those who wanted to see the two giants team up again were the most let down. Be that as it may, the tale was far from over. A new team took over and restarted the Ford v. Ferrari project after a few years. Under James Mangold's direction, the picture was reworked as Ford v. Ferrari with new actors. Christian Bale was cast as Ken Miles, while Matt Damon was cast as Carroll Shelby. Mangold decided a different dynamic would benefit the plot. Thus, this version abandoned the original star-studded combination. Looking back, the what-if situation involving Tom and Brad's near collaboration on Go Like Hell is still intriguing. Let me tell you something entertaining first. It was supposed to be, even if there may be more going on here than meets the eye. As it turns out, no one can really escape their fate, and Brad Pitt certainly couldn't avoid Tom Cruise. Finally, Brad Pitt revealed the shocking Tom Cruise truth. Prior filming interview with the vampire, the two actors were approached with an offer to collaborate on a classic crime film project with a budget of $73 million. The picture would have focused on jail life. Guess what, though? The two Hollywood icons' relationship and careers were irrevocably changed when they decided to act in an adaptation of Anne Rice's Gothic book. After Brad's breakout performance in Thelma and Louise, director Frank Darabont wanted him to play a pivotal part in The Shawshank Redemption. However, Brad ultimately decided to focus on Interview with the Vampire. Thus, Gil Bellows was cast instead. But the film was a huge hit with audiences. Even though their friendship never materialized, Tom and Brad were a formidable cinematic duo despite their strained relationship. We should also discuss another surprising fact about Tom, the bother, because of the tension around this topic. Everyone knows that Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt, two of Hollywood's most famous actors, had a rocky on-screen relationship when they co-starred in the vampire film Interview with the Vampire. Get ready, everyone, for Brad has chosen to spill the beans on what actually happened with Tom Cruise and disclose the horrifying truth. Brad said in an interview that working with Tom was like being caught on an endless roller coaster ride. And I don't mean that in a good way. Brad felt that Tom had a "I'm perfect" switch that never went off since Tom was always on, according to him, and it drove Brad insane. Hold on a second, there's more. Tom was not an easy co-worker, according to Brad, who also said that there was a cut behind his icy demeanor and hard handshakes, an upcoming race for the throat. Brad was the first to confess that they were unable to carry on a normal conversation and that an uncomfortable tension pervaded their relationship. "It wasn't nasty, but boy was it there," the blonde hunk said. The story takes a dark turn as details of a disastrous night out are revealed. Rumor has it that Brad swore he would never work with Tom again after his stunning actions at a restaurant. What a disastrous dinner date. Now hear me out. Brad isn't completely pessimistic about Tom. He did give the Mission Impossible actor some credit for his skills and hard ethic. However, we must admit that this is like to praising someone's footwear subsequent to their trampling over your toes. These two Hollywood giants have been inseparable since their vampire days, like two tired fighters circling one another. We now know why they haven't shared the screen since. So what's going on? Is the ongoing enmity between these two actors only a Hollywood plot twist, or has it persisted over the years? Time will tell, I suppose, but at least Brad's confessions have shown us the real Hollywood. The point is, folks, Hollywood isn't always what it seems to be. Do you have any opinions? Will we ever see these two put their differences aside and enjoy their on-screen chemistry again? Post a comment and tell us.